On May 20th, 2026, a 22-year-old ghost finally laid to rest. For an entire generation of Arsenal, the whistle wasn't just a signal that they were Premier League champions, it was psychological exorcism. Imagine spending over 2 decades in a relationship where the first year was absolute magic, and every year since then has been a cycle of almost public jokes and expensive heartbreaks. Most people would walk away, but millions of Gunners didn't. To understand why they stayed, to understand the endurance and the sheer masochism of this loyalty, we have to go back to the moment the standard was set. The moment Arsenal stopped being a team and became an unshakable part of who these people are. Somewhere in southeast London back in 1925, where a visionary named Herbert Chapman forged something that would eventually outlast him. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to dominate with class. This created a specific kind of identity fusion. Supporting Arsenal became about more than just football, it became about the right way to do things. Think of it like being born into a family with massive, prestigious estates. Even if the roof starts leaking and the bank account runs dry, the children are raised to believe they are still royalty. This hope for success, you feel entitled to it. The standard became a baseline that will eventually haunt the fan base for the next 2 decades. Then in 1996, a man who looked more like a professor than a manager arrived from Japan, Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger didn't just change the team, he changed English football's soul. Between 1998 and 2004, Arsenal played beautiful football. A style so aesthetic that fans didn't just watch for the result, they watched for the feeling. This era peaked with the Invisibles. 38 games, 0 losses. For a fan, this was the ultimate high. In psychology, this is often called identity fusion. When you see your team achieve something that has never been done before, your own self-esteem becomes tied to that badge. You aren't just a supporter anymore, your identity and the club's fate merge. This is the hook that kept millions around. When the relationship eventually turned cold, they stayed because their emotional bank account was so full of Thierry Henry goals and Patrick Vieira's trophy lifts that they believed the bad times were just a temporary glitch in the natural order of things. They weren't just loyal, they were waiting for the right Arsenal to come back. In 2006, Arsenal moved a few hundred yards down the road to a $750 million temple of football, the Emirates Stadium. It was supposed to be the launchpad to global dominance. Instead, it became a financial cage. To pay for those glass walls, the club began a systematic fire scale of its soul. Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Ashley Cole, the pillars of the Invisibles were sold off, often for fees that felt like an insult to the fans' emotional investment. Imagine your partner tells you that you need to move into a massive, expensive house, but to pay the mortgage, you'd have to sell your car, your furniture, and eventually the things that made you fall in love with them in the first place. You're living in luxury, but you're sitting on the floor in the dark. This is where the loyalty started to feel heavy. Arsenal fans were paying the highest ticket prices into the world to watch a team that was being stripped of its stars year after year. They were being charged a premium for a product that was objectively regressing. On August 28, 2011, the banter era truly arrived. A 118-year record for a bad start was capped by a humiliating 8-2 defeat at Old Trafford. It wasn't just a loss, it was a public execution. Social media turned at 8 to be an Arsenal fan into a global punchline. This pain created a new lucrative economy, the business of outrage. A former reggae DJ named Robbie Lyle realized that while fans love to win, the internet devours a meltdown. Statistics show that post-match videos after an Arsenal loss generated more than double the views of a victory. Neutral fans weren't just watching to support, they were coming for the joy of watching someone else's world fall apart. This created a bizarre internal conflict. The more the team suffered, the more famous the unhinged fans became. The fan base started to fracture. Were you a loyalist who defended the club's dignity, or were you a toxic for demanding change at any cost? By 2014, it'd been 9 years without a single trophy. For most people, 9 years of failure in a job or a hobby would lead to total abandonment. But sports fans work on a different neurological clock. Psychologists talk about a mechanism where rewards are delivered unpredictably. Think of a slot machine. You endure hundreds of losses just for that one sudden hit of dopamine. For Arsenal fans, that hit was the 2014 FA Cup final. Down 2-0 to Hull City within 9 minutes, the same old Arsenal script was written. But then they clawed back. Aaron Ramsey's winner in extra time didn't just end the drought, it acted as a massive reset button for the fans' endurance. The victory reframed the previous decade of pain not as a waste, but as a necessary cost for this moment of glory. The trauma bond was sealed, they were back in the game, convinced that the professor could still lead them to the promised land. They didn't know that the real civil war was just beginning. By 2015, the standard was no longer a baseline, it was a ghost haunting the corridors. The dopamine hit of the 2014 FA Cup had worn off. The reality of being top 4 specialists became its own form of psychological endurance. Think of it like long-term relationship where you're constantly celebrating anniversaries of when we were happy, while ignoring the fact that you haven't had a meaningful conversation in years. Your friends are telling you to leave, your family is worried, and you're clinging to the person they used to be. This led to an unprecedented civil war. In March 2017, fans actually raised thousands of pounds to fly competing planes over a match. One demanding Wenger's exit, the other pleading for respect. The fan base had split into 2 tribes, those who saw loyalty as a moral duty and those who saw it as a suicide pact. The stadium, once called the Highbury Library for its quiet dignity, had become a pressure cooker for public shame. Arsene Wenger eventually walked away in 2018, but the toxicity didn't live with him. Under his successor, Unai Emery, results crumbled and the standard finally gave way to irrelevance. Empty seats became a weekly fixture as fans simply stopped showing up, a form of emotional quiet quitting. The relationship hit rock bottom on October 27, 2019. When the club captain Granit Xhaka was substituted, the home crowd didn't just jeer, they cheered his departure with biting sarcasm. Zaha's reaction, copying his years and swearing at his own supporters, was the ultimate signal of a relationship that had turned completely abusive. The captain of Arsenal had officially declared war on his own fan base. In December 2019, Mikel Arteta arrived to find a fragile and fractured institution. He realized that to save the relationship, he had to perform a total cultural exorcism. This meant removing big characters who fans loved, but who no longer met the required standards. Mesut Ozil and Aubameyang, icons of the previous era, were systematically frozen out to protect the integrity of the team. This could be called the no-contact phase of the breakup. Arteta realized that to build something healthy, you have to cut out the toxic influences entirely, even if it causes immense pain in the short term. For 2 years, Arsenal finished 8th, their lowest position in decades. The outrage industry was screaming for his head, but for the first time in 20 years, the board stayed silent and backed the vision. They were building a new identity based on youth, discipline, and a stubborn refusal to be bullied. If any single story proves that this toxic cycle could be broken, it's the redemption of Granit Xhaka. In 2019, he was the face of the fans' rage. He was finished, his bags were literally packed, but under Arteta's arm around the shoulder approach, the villain became the hero. By his final match in 2023, the same fans who had booed him were begging him to stay. It was a moment of profound psychological healing for the entire club. On May 20th, 2026, the endurance was finally validated. Why did they stay? Why did the fans stay for this long? Because of a concept called shared dysphoria. Memories of the 8-2 loss and the plain banners didn't drive fans away. They fused the collective together. The pain became a moral badge of honor. Most of us support our clubs because they are permanent stakes of who we are. Players leave, managers change, but the canon represents a 100-year-old story that fans refuse to let end. Arsenal fans stayed because they knew that the Arsenal way eventually wins. And on May 28th, 2026, they proved that loyalty isn't about sticking around for the good times. It's about surviving the bad ones until they become the legends of tomorrow. Is your relationship with your club healthy, or are you in your own banter era? Let us know in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. I'll see you next time.